Awesome.
Thank you.
Yep, you bet. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for your introduction, Dan, and thanks to everybody who is here with us today. I'm excited to be here with you, and even though I can't see you, I hope you'll participate with me a little bit. Use the chat. We can use the Q&A too if you'd like to do that, and I'll kind of keep an eye on that as I'm going through, and I'll leave a little bit of time at the end, hopefully, too, for some questions. So in the introduction, I realized as Dan was speaking that doesn't tell you a whole lot about who I really am. It tells you a little bit. But I do want to say that I have 2 elementary age children who are home from school, and I'm in my basement office. So I'm hoping that I won't be interrupted, but you never know. This is the reality we're living in. And I think that this topic actually, how to cope with stress, like anytime stress, but especially as the holidays are coming, I hope this will be really helpful to you. And as I was putting it together, there were some really helpful reminders for me, as a mother, as a wife, as an employee, as a daughter, as a friend, as a sister, all these different roles that I play in my life. Many of those kind of ramp up in intensity due to the holidays. So I just want to say that, and hopefully that lets you know, like, I'm here with you. I think we're all going through a lot of, varied experiences, maybe some that we never expected we would right now. And so I think that that's just important to note as we dive in. And also as we dive in, I want to just give a moment for us to sort of get centered, get gathered all together, get your mind in the same place as your body. Because oftentimes our minds are doing a whole bunch of other stuff. We're not necessarily like right where we are. So I'll invite you to pause whatever it is you're doing. You're multitasking. I know in a webinar, I do it too. There's so many other things to do. But if you will take just a moment and pause and close your eyes if you'd like, because I think that that's sometimes really helpful. And just take a deep breath in and out. And just remind yourself that as you kind of settle in, settle down, your mind can be in the same place as your body. And as you sort of scan through your body, you might just notice if you're holding on to any tension or anything is kind of bothering you. You can move around. You don't have to just sit still. And you might just check in with your thoughts too, if there's anything kind of nagging you. If you need to stop for a second and write something down, just to get it out of your mind, you can do that. And then take a deep breath in and feel each part of it. And just notice that you're basically okay right now. And as you exhale, try to let go of a little bit of tension. You can repeat that a couple of times as you need to. And then as you're ready, you can open your eyes, release this practice. Okay, so one of I would say that's actually the first tool that I'm going to teach you today. And one of the really impactful things that I've learned in the last couple of years is just the reminder that, like, I'm basically okay. Like, there might be a lot going on. I may feel kind of frazzled. I may be feeling really overwhelmed. And like, if I stop for a second, like I'm basically okay. Like, I can breathe. Necessary things, hopefully for the most part, are getting done. Like my kids, had a snack when they got home from school. They made it on the bus this morning. Those kinds of basic things are getting done. And just pausing to like notice that is actually a practice of gratitude. Even we don't always think of gratitude in that way. Sometimes we think of gratitude as like these big things in our lives that we're thankful for. And yeah, that's great. It's good. It's actually really good for you. And sometimes we forget that even those little moments of like, okay, I know there's a lot going on and I'm basically okay right now is a good pause, a good reminder for us. So yeah, with that, I'm going to dig in here a little bit to hacking our neurochemicals. So like Dan said in my introduction, I love the brain. I think it's so cool. I'm so fascinated by the way our brains and our bodies work together, and in health and in illness, both. I think that they're just really, really fascinating things. And so I pulled together a few things today that I hope will be really helpful. Again, holiday stress for sure. Like we've got a lot piled on us with holidays oftentimes. And I think also if we're people living in this world, we are probably dealing with stress some other time too. So hopefully these tips will help you at lots of different times in your life. And so I'm going to kind of unpack the science of like intentionally engaging with your nervous system to reduce the impact of the stress. And I'll talk about that just a little bit more. All right. So really quick, I want to give a shout out to the Show Me Hope crisis counseling program. We are still in the middle of a pandemic. I don't know if you remember, if you realize, I have like daily moment to moment reminders sometimes. I had a kid that had to quarantine from school recently. And so those kinds of things are still happening in our lives. We have a lot of people in our families, maybe it's us, around us, in our communities that might be dealing with the effects of the pandemic on their mental and emotional well-being. And so we always like to share this number. We are at University Health Behavioral Health. We are part of the crisis counseling program through Show Me Hope, Missouri. So if you are in need of some crisis counseling support, you can access those services for free through this program by calling 816-404-6222. And yeah, I just want to make sure that you have that information. I'm also going to drop in the chat to everyone. Oh, no, I'm not, because I can't do it from my computer. I have handouts, and maybe I can get with Dan and I can get those sent to you afterward. But I can send you the slides and everything, so you don't have to write down all of this stuff. And I have a couple other things that I want to share too. So you may not have hit the wall yet. And maybe you feel like you've hit the wall many, many times. Oftentimes, I think as we get into the holiday season, like things do sometimes start to get really overwhelming. You may feel like, okay, I can't do anymore. I'm done. And actually hitting the wall is not always a bad thing. Sometimes we hit the wall simply because we are tired. It's very normal to hit a wall. We can only deal with so much stress, so much overwhelm before we need a break from it. And it doesn't mean that you're failing. It doesn't mean that you're lost. It just means that you're tired. So listen to those signals that your body gives you. And follow them, like identify what you need. And I think there are lots of ways that we don't pay attention to those. And we often try to push through when we hit that wall. It's like, no, I can do it just a little bit more. I have like 15 more things on my to-do list. I can get these done. I can do it. I'm going to make it. But just remember, it's probably not that productive to try to keep pushing through. In fact, sometimes we don't do our best, most creative work when we are feeling all of that overwhelm, because we are in our stress response, and the more creative parts of our brain are not really functioning all that well. So not only that, but oftentimes when we hit that wall, we kind of beat ourselves up for struggling, and that can make it take a longer time for us to kind of get through what it is that we're dealing with. So remember to be kind to yourself. You're doing the best that you can. I encourage you to practice self-compassion, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute, and to breathe. So we did a little bit of that already. And sometimes when we're stressed, we hold our breath, or sometimes we breathe more shallowly. And sometimes we subconsciously breathe out through pursed lips, like David. If any of you are fans of Schitt's Creek, that's what this GIF is from. It's actually kind of a natural response for us to go. And so, like, when we're frustrated, we breathe out through pursed lips. And that's our body's natural way of releasing some of that. So I want to teach you this practice of extended exhale breathing. Extending your exhale is one of the ways that we can re-engage our parasympathetic nervous system. So our sympathetic nervous system, that's our stress response. That's our fight, flight, or freeze response. The parasympathetic nervous system helps to counteract that, kind of gets us back to that place of stability, if you will, or kind of back to our baseline where we feel okay again. And one way to engage that, like I said, is through the exhale. Our sympathetic nervous system is actually a little bit activated when we inhale. And you probably have experienced this when you've been startled by something. Something startles you and you breathe in. So focus on breathing out. And I actually didn't start our practice at the beginning of this like that, but I often do encourage people before we do a breathing exercise of any kind to breathe out first. You have to get that air out first before you can breathe in fully. So one way to do the extended exhale is through inhaling like for a count of 4 and then holding it for about 7 and then exhaling for 8. So that's called 4-7-8 breathing. If you don't like the odd number in the middle, it doesn't really matter. You can, if you want to do this like to music or something and you're like me and there's no way you can do 4-7-8. I often do 4-8-8 or 4-6-8. So I'll invite you to try this with me now. So breathe out fully. And now breathe in for 4 through your nose. 2, 3, 4, and then hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and out through your mouth. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then pause, and then breathe in and hold. 3, 4, 5, and out through your mouth. We'll do one more. Breathe in and hold. 4, 5, 6, 7, and out. All right, so that's extended exhale. You've all now engaged your parasympathetic nervous system. I hope you feel it. It's also a really great way to just stop whatever you're doing for a minute and like focus on yourself. Because that, if you're breathing, like that's really important, right? So taking that moment again, like I said before, just noticing I'm basically okay. I can still control my breathing. That's a good thing. You can also incidentally practice extended exhale by singing. So if you're someone who likes to sing, you don't have to sing well, but singing kind of by nature is an extended exhale because you take a nice big breath in and then you sing. Usually phrases are longer than what your inhale was. So you can try that out too. I highly recommend singing. It does lots and lots of really good things for you, like the vibrations and just you just feel good when being absorbed in music. So sing the songs you like, that's key. All right. And then as you're breathing, you may notice that, something's not quite right. I feel a little off. And there are other times where we like kind of jump to conclusions or we snap at people and then we're like, what is wrong with me? So take those cues from yourself and pause for a moment and think, am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Am I tired? Am I stressed? So hungry, angry, lonely, tired, stressed. Being mindful of that is really key. And once we're aware of how we're feeling or what we're experiencing, then we can identify and move forward with doing the kinds of self-care that we might actually need. So that is really helpful. And a best practice then is that using that acronym HALTS, all activity halts until we can engage in self-care. And I know self-care is kind of a tricky word. Self-care, I like to put it in air quotes a lot of times because it means different things sometimes to different people. I'm hoping today, as we move through this material, you'll see self-care maybe in a little bit different way than you have before. Self-care doesn't always have to be those things that cost a lot of money or require you to have extensive time. You can do self-care in little increments throughout the day. And one of the ways that we do that is to start by just noticing how we're feeling and then practicing self-compassion. So I mentioned that before. And we're going to pause and just do self-compassion for a moment too. As I kind of talk through what this is, I invite you to practice it with me. Just turn it in on yourself for a moment. And it really starts with accepting how we're feeling right now, noticing it, not invalidating it, not shoulding on ourselves like, oh, I shouldn't feel this way. I need to just get all this done. It doesn't matter how I feel. There's no time for me. I've said all of those things before, by the way. So no judgment from me. Those are like normal reactions, I think, or common reactions. So self-compassion really starts by naming what we're feeling. And that is a really powerful practice in and of itself, because naming how we're feeling does validate that it is real. The way I'm feeling is legitimate. And neurologically, it actually helps to shift our reasoning, or we can shift our brain function really out of our intense emotional response and into that more reasoning part of our brain, so that we can then be more creative, seek out what's going to be most helpful to us. So I'll invite you, if you like, I keep doing it because it feels good to me. Every time I think about self-compassion, my hands like automatically go over my chest, like right over my sternum. So if that's comfortable for you, you want to do that. It does feel good sometimes, like just for a moment, and tune in to yourself. Name what you're feeling, whatever that might be. No judgment, just it is what it is today. And then the next step of it is just acknowledging that you are a human being. And you have a range of human emotions. Those emotions are common to all humans. There's nothing weird about what you're feeling right now. Or maybe we're all weird, and that's okay too, because we're all human. We all feel that. We all experience that. And then the last part of self-compassion is just staying curious about yourself, about what you need. Identify what it is you need most. Are you hungry? Do you need to get a snack? Treat yourself with kindness. Are you lonely? Do you need to reach out to somebody and connect? Being kind to yourself, find a way to do that. And as we just wrap up this kind of teaching practice, you can take a breath and just remind yourself to be kind to yourself. Be as kind to yourself as you would to a dear friend. Okay, so that's self-compassion. And I like to lead with that before I get into this sciencey part that's next, because I think self-compassion is something that really can underscore well-being in all of us. And I think it starts to like eke out of us in ways that improves our compassion for other people too. And I think particularly when we get stressed, the people who are closest to us are the ones who kind of get the brunt of that. And that we snap at people, or our patience wears thin. And so those who are closest to us are the ones who might suffer the most from our stress, in addition to what's just happening in our own bodies. So starting with self-compassion, easing your own stress actually does help you be more compassionate then to other people. All right. So let me dig in just a little bit to some sciencey stuff. And if you're into sciencey stuff, you'll like this. And I made it pretty simple, I hope, because even though I really like science, some of it is so far over my head. So I tried to make it a little bit digestible for you. They're just very short things. I have 4 chemical messengers that I'm going to talk about. And these are things that are connected with like happiness and joy and satisfaction. And those are dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins. You've probably heard those words before. And whenever we have increased levels of those, we tend to have more motivation, more productivity, more enhanced well-being. And these neurotransmitters are released in response to lots of different stimuli in our internal and our external environments. And so what's really cool about each of these is that we can intentionally cause them to be released also. We can actually do things. So this is why I call it hack your neurochemicals, because there are things we can do that will boost all of these up so that we feel better, and we're better able to problem solve, to not be completely worn out by the stress that we're carrying. So dopamine is released when we achieve a goal. It motivates us to take action toward goals. It's often referred to as a reward chemical, and it makes us feel a sense of pleasure and satisfaction. And we can hack into that by setting incremental goals, celebrating at each marker along the way. So I'm going to talk about that just a little bit too. Serotonin is the next one. That increases when we feel significant or important. Our brains actually have trouble telling the difference between real and imagined events. So serotonin is produced even when we just reflect back on a success, or when we engage in a gratitude practice that reminds us of our own value, our own worth, how much we have, and how much we have to value in life. So another way, actually a really simple way to boost serotonin production, is to get some sunlight. And then oxytocin is the next one. You might know that one as the love hormone. It's released when we feel trust and intimacy with another person. And in particular, we get a nice boost of oxytocin when we get a hug from someone that we're close to. So if you're able to get that somewhere in life, that can be a really good oxytocin booster. And it relaxes us too, which is really cool. Actually, funny story. One of my friends at church this last weekend, my husband noticed that she was sitting in the lobby with her baby, and she was kind of dozing off. Now, he was thinking like, she's dozing off because she's really tired. She has a baby, right? But the first thing I thought of was, oh, she's getting that rush of oxytocin and she just feels so relaxed and so good. She kind of was dozing off. And I think we do, those bonds that we have with little ones, especially that belong to us, if we have those, that, that's one really great way. But it doesn't even have to be people that you're related to. Just anyone you feel a strong connection to, oftentimes, and you really trust them when you're engaged in some sort of connection with them, that will release oxytocin. Receiving and giving gifts also, even if they're not tangible gifts, that can boost oxytocin. So keep that one in mind too, as we're moving into the holiday season. I think that's a great way to not only hack your own neurochemicals, but hack other people's neurochemicals too. Giving and receiving gifts is a great way to boost oxytocin. And then endorphins is the last one. Endorphins are released in response to pain or stress, and they actually decrease our perception of pain. We can deal with a whole lot more when we have a boost of endorphins. And not just physical pain either, emotional pain or stress, the pain of stress also can be alleviated somewhat by endorphins. Exercise and laughter are actually like the two best ways probably to release endorphins. You can also get a little boost of endorphins from the smell of lavender and vanilla, incidentally. Some interesting research on that. And also the taste of dark chocolate and spicy foods. So you could try those all together. That could be really interesting. But that's been linked to endorphin release also. All right, so that's kind of the basics on those neurochemicals. Now I want to get into some particular hacks or tools. So getting some sunlight, I mentioned that one. It promotes serotonin production and increases vitamin D. And vitamin D is essential for a lot of our health, bone health, heart health, I think our nervous system also, as well as there was one other, our immune system. Our immune system really benefits from vitamin D. And so it's also been linked to optimal mental health as well. So vitamin D is a really great thing. And the best way to get vitamin D is actually from sunlight. So there's lots of benefits to it. It reduces the potential for seasonal depression, especially if you can. One of the ways that works the best is sunlight hitting the back of your retina. And it's difficult to get that in winter months. So that's why some people have like a light box that helps them to manage those kind of seasonal mood shifts. So that could be one option too, if you're not able to get good quality sunlight on your face. Like, go look into the sun, close your eyes, don't look directly at the sun. But but being outside absorbing that and having your skin be exposed to the sunlight as well. And it boosts immunity. It can regulate our circadian rhythms as well. Be careful though, of course, with sunlight, because our skin cells are very susceptible to the UV rays. So you only want to stay in direct sun with bare skin for like half the time it would take for your skin to get a light burn. So if you usually start to get sunburned after like 20 minutes in the sun, aim for like 10 minutes of exposure to sunlight. And I read recently that actually getting sunlight on like your arms and your legs, maybe not your legs as much in the winter, but your arms, you could, push up your sleeves. Your skin's a little thicker there, tends to be a little thicker than like your face. So wear sunscreen on your face and give your arms some sunlight for, your tolerance limit. And that'll help boost that vitamin D production, as well as give you some serotonin. All right, the next one is play. And play actually is a form of rest. Who knew? There are actually 7 types of rest. And I'm not going to go into all of those today, but if you're interested in that, I would encourage you to look up the TED Talk by Andrea Dalton Smith, no relation to me. And she talks about the 7 types of rest. And it's really fascinating and very useful. So I'm going to actually pull a couple of things out from that today. So play is a form of creative rest. We have all these different kinds of needs for engaging our brains in different ways. And play is one of those. It helps to release dopamine, engages our vagus nerve. If you know anything about that, and playing is really just engaging in an activity for no practical purpose. You're just doing it to do it. There's no one way to play. There are lots of ways to play. We all play in different ways. You can play a game, or you can just, color, or even talking with a kid. Kids are like endless supplies of play, I feel like. Hang out with somebody who is really playful, especially an adult who's playful. Those kinds of people might be really fun to be around, and encourage you to like let go of some stuff and think about things differently, help us be more creative. So I just recently, I've gotten off social media a lot, but I happened to hop back on Twitter I was looking for a particular message from someone, and I just was kind of flipping through, and someone had tweeted, and I loved this, that she had a really tight to-do list for the week. And she was saying something about it to her young daughter, who told her, make sure you get weird and take some dance breaks. And I was like, that is such great advice. I think her daughter's like, I don't know, 5 or 6 or something. Make sure you get weird and take some dance breaks. So have some playtime. All right. And then the next one is move. And move and play can kind of go together. Actually, a lot of these can go together. The thing about movement is that it is one of the best ways that we have to not only release endorphins, like I talked about before, but it also helps us metabolize the stress chemicals that build up in us. So, when we get stressed, we get adrenaline and we get cortisol, and, all those things are like coursing through our veins. And we can't always effectively just go on through our days and get rid of those. It tends to hang around. So you may not be able to get rid of the stressors that you have in your life. The things that are going on may not change in the foreseeable future. Ooh, stumbling over my words a little, sorry. But you can always get rid of the stress by metabolizing it. And movement is one of the best ways to do that. So deal with the stress so you can be well enough to deal with the stressors. And that is advice actually that comes from a really cool book that I've read lately, and I keep referring it to people. It's Burnout by Emily and Amelia Nagoski. Super great. If you don't have time to read a whole book, go watch their TED Talk. So that they talk about completing the stress response cycle in their book. So again, getting rid of the stress is not the same as getting rid of the stressor. And endorphin release and movement in general, it increases hope, optimism, energy, aliveness, connectedness. And it doesn't have to be like really intense movement, just take a walk around the block. Especially getting outside can be really helpful because then you get the sunlight and then you get the movement. And it's also a little bit like play because you don't really necessarily have a reason other than it might be to get some exercise or to release your stress chemicals. And I'll give you a hint, from your music therapist friend here. Music with movement makes it easier to move. You can move for longer with more pleasure. It changes your mood. So having some kind of a walk-on song or something that you put on and for that 3 minutes, you're just going to play, you're going to move, get up and dance around. So I'll invite you, if you want to now, we're going to take a 1-minute dance break and I'm going to put some music on. Oh, let me make sure I shared my sound. Okay. And so if you want to get up, we can't see you. So that's the good thing about webinar. Get up, have a dance break, go. Oh, it didn't play. Oh, hang on. There we go. You can do a little stretching while you dance too. That feels good. We've been sitting here for half an hour now. All right. Okay, so that was your short dance break for today. But try to find a time where you can just let go, have a little dance break. All right, the next one is connection. Connection actually is also a form of rest. Andrea Dalton talks about it as social rest. And sometimes we have things, I think, especially in holiday times, it comes up that we have to spend time with people that might be draining to us, or we just have so many things that with so many groups of people or so many people, or, it's just intense. My kids just came off a week of being home from school. And then one was quarantined the week before that. So it was a lot of time, and I love my children dearly. And that at times it can be draining to spend 24 hours a day with them. And so, especially because we're just not used to it now, kind of back in the school routine. So, thinking about just how different relationships, maybe you have got a family member. I know I have some that I know I'm going to see them, and I know that it's going to be tricky. I think there are so many things relationally that are tricky in groups of people these days, whether we're avoiding talking about things or we're actually talking about them. Politics and COVID and, shipping containers. And I mean, there's all kinds of things. These are my personal examples that come up in my own family. So just noting which relationships are maybe a little more draining and which ones really revive you, really energize you. And make a plan for how you are going to connect with those people who really energize you. And that's really important, probably even more so than trying to avoid the people who are draining. Trying to avoid the people who are draining probably it may not be possible, first of all. And you're probably just going to feel worse about it. So just let that be what it is and focus more on how am I going to connect with even one person who I really feels like gets me. I can talk, I can just be myself. I come away feeling, revved up rather than drained. So think about how you can work that into your life. And the benefits of that connection are really like mutual co-regulation of nervous systems. And so it also releases oxytocin. We have these, our brainwaves sync up with people when we're with them. Especially people that we feel close to. So, I'm trying to think of what the name is. 2-person neuroscience is kind of the one of the ways that that's being researched now. And they can actually show on brain scans now how brain waves are syncing up. It's fascinating. I don't have time to talk about all that, but super cool. The Nagoskis also talk about human giver syndrome in that book, Burnout, that I mentioned. And I think that if you're here today, it might be likely that you experience a touch of human giver syndrome once in a while, especially as we get into the holidays, but maybe all the time if you're a caregiver of any type. It's really natural for us to give, to take care of other people, and maybe we don't pay as much attention to our own needs in that. So we can also think about how self-care is really facilitated by the ways that we care for others and how they care for us, that it's that mutual relationship. Now, that's not every relationship, of course, but seeking out and having at least one of those really strong relationships where we have that kind of dynamic can be really, really beneficial. All right. The next one is unplug, getting some sensory rest. We have bright lights and sounds and smells and just so much input into our brains all day long. And as we get busy, not only do we have the noise from outside, but then we've got the noise from inside also, like brains that just don't quiet down. So taking a pause to just unplug. And I'll invite you to do that right now, if you can. If you're someplace where you can turn the lights off, like you can do that for a minute, or simply close your eyes. I'm going to not talk for a minute, maybe not quite a minute, maybe 45 seconds. A minute's a long time. I'm going to just not talk. We're going to be quiet. Try to be as quiet as you can. It's okay if you shift around a little bit, but just pause and enjoy the silence for just a moment. Okay. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes. You can take longer breaks of sensory rest or unplugging, silencing your notifications on your phone, even the buzz, and I have a Fitbit and it gets notifications, and I have found that sometimes I just need to like take it off, put it away, or silence the notifications, because the constant like bzz, bzz, can kind of start to, I mean, you may not feel like you notice it a lot, but it's more input into our brains. So how can we kind of reduce that even for just a few minutes at a time? All right. The next one I want to talk about is wonder and how to track wonder. And this came from a really interesting continuing education session that I listened to with someone named Jeffrey Davis. He wrote a book that's coming out just in a couple weeks called Tracking Wonder. I pre-ordered it. I'm really excited to get it because it was a really fascinating talk. And he talks about how wonder is really a unique experience. We come into the world with wonder. Wonder exists before love, before compassion, before joy, before curiosity, like before all of those things is wonder. And it's distinct from awe. Awe is something that in our department we've talked about a lot, because awe is like this, mind-blowing kind of experience. And that can be really good too. Wonder is a little bit different because wonder is more quiet. And there are 6 facets of wonder. I found this to be really interesting that Jeffrey Davis talks about. So the facets are openness, curiosity, bewilderment, hope, connection, and admiration. And you can track all of those things. And he talks about tracking them in that you just notice when you have them, notice when you have that experience. And then also intentionally pause once in a while to dwell on or devote yourself to each one of those and see where it might lead you. What's really interesting is that when we practice those things that evoke wonder in us. I love this picture of the little child, by the way, like looking at the feather, like, oh, it's just that wonder just captures that for me. when we have those, it's a quiet disruptor of our unseen biases. So it can actually dissolve our rigid ways of seeing things. And, bias exists in lots of different ways. We make judgments about things all the time, including how we're doing in response to stress. So wonder is not like wishful thinking. It really cultivates creativity in what's possible. And it's really about directly engaging in what is real. And I think that is something that is really, really sustainable. It's something that will sustain us through those times of stress, because when we do get stressed, our minds tend to go like to the past, or we worry about what's coming up, and we're not fully present. And so this practice of tracking wonder allows us to really be in the present moment, notice what's happening, and be open, be curious, stay alive to, what's going on. And I think it could also be tied a bit with a practice of gratitude. Just that reminder that, like, even though there are lots of things going on, like not great things sometimes, not great things and really good things can exist at the same time. They can coexist. And sometimes those really great things are not really big things. They can be very, very small, like a feather floating in the air. Those cool little things. I'm kind of a kid at heart, and I get really excited about that sort of stuff. Like just neat things like patterns. I love patterns on fabric or wallpaper or paintings or drawings. And one thing that I do for play actually is draw. And I got interested in Zentangle many years ago. If you don't know what that is, look it up. It's kind of neat. But I've noticed that actually is one of the ways that I track wonder. Because I like get really into those little details, and then you kind of blow out to the whole image that you've just drawn, and it's like that bewilderment part. So anyway, and another really important thing about tracking wonder is how it can deepen our connections with others as well. So again, when we get stressed, we tend to notice the things that we're not so happy about in our partners, in our family members, in our coworkers, in our community members. We'll tend to notice all the bad things or all the things that we don't like. And if we instead shift our perspective and try to stay in that more open, curious place, that actually does improve our ability to connect with other people more authentically. And again, I think this is a great neurochemical hack that we're hacking for ourselves, but we're also helping to do that for other people. Boosting oxytocin, boosting that dopamine and serotonin production as well. All right. So I just want to give one more prompt. I said it before, but get outside. I'm going to send you a handout called Get Outside that has a practice that you can do. If it's cold, put on a coat. If it's raining, take an umbrella. But getting outside with the intention to connect, even just for a few minutes, connecting with yourself, connecting with nature, is really restorative. Even if it's like the distance between your car and the store front, like pause there outside for a moment and, close your eyes, kind of take in what you can. If there's nature around, sometimes there's not in the big parking lots, but find a tree. The trees are beautiful right now. The maples are incredible. So just taking that time to go outside. And then one of my last tips here is to celebrate your to-do list. So to-do lists, even though they can be really helpful, they help us maybe like organize, keep on track. They can sometimes be really overwhelming, and we can kind of really get down on ourselves when we fail to complete them. Like I said before, no, I'll go back to that in just a second. But when we have those moments of like, oh, I had all these things on my to-do list and I got like half of them done, and now I feel like a failure. We start to do that negative self-talk thing, and that doesn't help us feel any better, right? And this happened to me. I discovered this hack And I've been sharing it with a lot of people for the last year or so because it was so powerful for me. I'm a to-do list maker and I love having a list. I love knowing exactly what I'm supposed to get done. And I like, trying to prioritize and figure out like, how can I do this the most efficiently? And like all that stuff makes me feel really good. Mid-pandemic last year, when my children were doing school remotely, and I was trying to work remotely for the first time really ever in my life, it was a lot. We also decided to sell our house and move in the middle of all of that. So I had a lot going on and my to-do lists were not getting done. I'd get like a couple things done. I'd get the essential things done. And I realized that that wasn't really helping. And at some point I noted to myself like, oh, well, maybe I didn't get these things done, but I got all these other things done that were not on my to-do list. So I started making a ta-da list at the end of the day, listed what I accomplished. And doing that, no matter how small, give yourself a moment of celebration. Again, it doesn't matter how big or small it is. We get that boost of serotonin when we make that celebration of what we accomplished. So give yourself a little celebration. And you can keep making your to-do lists if you need to. You might just consider adding on the ta-da list also to celebrate what you did get done. So it's kind of a gratitude practice too, sort of a twist on that. And I just want to end with this reminder that no matter what is on your to-do list, you are enough. If you can meet the basic necessities and you're kind to yourself and to others, that's enough. And so I love this quote from Brené Brown. She says, no matter how much I get done or is left undone, at the end of the day, I am enough. And I think she also gives this reminder too, that we're human beings. We're not human doings. So be sure to take some time to be, play, connect, rest, unplug, all of those things that help to restore us. It's so important. And it's not important so that we can go and keep doing all of these other things, but it is important because you are a human being. You are worth it. You are enough. So I hope that that is a helpful reminder to you as I wrap this up now. Just one more thing. If nothing else, refocus on those essentials. Rest, eat, connect, move. Those 4 basic things. And maybe think about too, like if you live with other people, like what are your collective practices, especially as times get stressful, to really refocus on these essentials, making sure that you're getting these things done. And that's ultimately what is probably most important. All right, I'll invite you to check out our virtual room of refuge if you want some resources for self-care. I'm gonna put it in air quotes again. We have lots of different things on there. We're changing it all the time. We do have some grief sessions coming up. If you have lost someone or things have changed a lot in the last year or two, and taking some time to grieve. I didn't talk about that today much, or really at all. But taking some time to grieve around this time of year is also, I think, really helpful. So we invite you to join us for that, and you can find information about that on our virtual room of refuge. And again, the information on the crisis counseling program, and I'll make sure to send these slides. There's my email. If you want to get a hold of me, I'd be happy to connect and hear more about you and what you're learning, what you're dealing with, what you want to share. I love to share with people. So yeah, that's really all I have. Thank you. If there are questions, feel free. We have a few minutes. You can drop them in the chat or the Q&A, and I'll be happy to entertain some of those. Yeah, I'll make sure you'll get, I'll give you the slides. I'm going to give you the Get Outside handout, and there may be one other. I'm trying to remember now. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's just those 2.
And we'll have the recording. If you want to go through the whole thing again, we'll have the recording on the website for Metro Council. So that'll be available soon too. So this has been really rejuvenating. I was kind of tired when I got onto this, and And I'm so glad that we don't have the cameras on. So I actually did dance. I normally wouldn't do that. Anyway,
Yay!
no way I'd ever do that.
I mean, I didn't get out of my chair. Ordinarily,
You had your moves going on. We could see.
I was moving. I was moving. Yeah, no, movement, dancing. I mean, who cares? Who cares what you look like? I say that about singing too. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a good singer or a good dancer. Just do it. If you want to do it behind a closed door, that's fine. But it really is so good. We're meant to do that. I feel like it's just, there's something really innate in human beings to make music, to move to music. We're naturally rhythmic, and we embody that. So we tend to not pay attention to it, especially if we think we're not creative. I just want to challenge everybody. Everyone is creative. We are all creative all the time. We don't always notice it. So embrace those moments. That's why play is so important too, I think.
Agreed. The looking ahead for those who are participating, on December 9th, we're not going to have one of these on the fourth Friday of November because we'll all be overeating on that day, I imagine. But the next one will be on December 9th, and it's going to be Ryan Cox talking about implicit bias, which is, I'm really looking forward to that one as well. The work I've seen on implicit bias is kind of astounding and well worth paying attention to. Any more questions or anything? So much energy you brought to us. You've kind of calmed us all down.
That's great. That was my goal.
Well done. And your kids, I only heard a little bit in the background, so they were well behaved.
They're having a good time with whatever it is that they're doing. Oh, thank you, Letitia. Yeah, I have my sign behind me. It's hard to point in the camera. It is extended exhale breathing. I should have pointed that out when we were doing it. So breathe in 2, 3, 4, and then pause, breathe out to 8. I fully intended to change that, regularly over the last year and a half or so. But I put that on there, and I can't change it now. Like, it's every time I get on screen, it's my reminder to okay, everything's okay. I'm gonna just breathe for a second, and then I can move forward.
And for those in the audience who are wondering, I can vouch that she does this because when we were getting started, I had logged in incorrectly, and as she coached me through getting us started properly, she said, everything's going to be fine.
I did. That's funny.
You did. You absolutely gave me a little free therapy, though.
Yeah, Zoom problems, small on the scale of issues.
But I'm glad we got them solved so everybody could enjoy this. So thank you for that as well.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone.
Thank you. See you on the 9th, everybody. All right.